Now we're here with Tago, guys. Tago, say what's up to everyone who already knows you.
What's up to everyone who already knows me? No one
So,
else. You guys don't get a what's up. If you're watching this and you don't know me, that wasn't for you.
yeah, that's the absolute scrappers attitude right there. Jumping into our first question, Tago. What was your drafting strategy in the player auction?
So, I think that it ended up looking pretty clear. I thought that there were a lot of really good players who were available in the pools, and so I thought that spending a ton of money on any single player was like kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
So my strategy was to sit back and try to let people spend as much as they could and get players who I thought were good and consistent for as cheap as possible, so that I could then get other players on the low end of the draft and have a much more like even draft where everyone is a very good player.
Yeah, that was definitely a good strategy. I think a couple of teams like going into the first round had already spent like a huge amount of their budget, and that's always a really sound strategy. That's kind of like the opposite strategy what King Rock was going for. So, moving on, my next question is: was there a player in the draft that during the auction that got away from you?
I would have liked to have Zank. So just the way that we used to play, I think I've gone to be a little bit more offensive lately. It was a lot more on the like bulky side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so just in general, I was thinking, it would be nice to be on a team with Zank. And when King Rock started bidding him up, it wasn't that he got away, but just that I was trying to go like, well, I either get him, which is beneficial to me, or I make King Rock spend more money, which is also beneficial to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my plan there, but I'll stick with Zank.
Any low tier players that you thought got away from you? Someone you would have liked on your team?
Low tier players. It's always nice to have people who I'm really close with, like KJ. But I think in general, my team is very close to what I was actually shooting for right from the beginning.
Okay. Moving on, my next question is: on your team, this is me pitting you against all your teammates in total scrapper fashion. Who do you predict gets the most dubs for your team this season?
Well, it's not much of a prediction anymore because we're 3 weeks in. So I'm going to go with Blitz because I think that I'm going to project him being 3-0.
Okay, I mean, there's 3 weeks to go. You never know. Well, actually, 2 weeks. I'm really bad at math. Jesus Christ. Half my videos on this channel is just me telling people how bad I am at math.
That's fair. And then I predict him winning in the playoffs as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to be first seed most likely. So, yeah, he'll only need to win once. So 4-0 for Blitz.
So, if you had to pick someone on the other teams that you think would get the most number of dubs for their respective team.
Oh, should I go down the teams?
Yeah, you could just any of the other teams, just any player you think would surprise people or just pick up dubs. Maybe someone who you wouldn't normally associate with picking up a whole lot of dubs.
I'm going to go with, I would have said Daddy for TMNT.
Mm-hmm.
For the Skook van, someone who wouldn't normally pick up a lot of dubs, I probably would say, I think Kylie is like a good player. She's been in the ISL, which is a league that I run, and just watching her games, I think she's been doing a really good job. So Kylie would be my pick there.
Mm-hmm.
On the Goth Hooters, gotta pick Christy for the upset win against us this week, that first week.
Mm-hmm.
So he's picking up some pocket wins.
Shout out Christy.
On the Nitwits, Cran,
Mm-hmm.
I know that he's done some crazy stuff. He won his game against Lambo in pretty stellar fashion. Very beneficial for us. Shout out to Cran. And then on DDD, probably Beats.
Okay, that's a really good run of picks. Shout out Christy, and definitely not a plug for ISO. Moving on. Which team do you see as your biggest rival / competition? They both don't necessarily have to be the same thing. You could have one team as your biggest competition, one team as your biggest rival.
Biggest rival?
Mm-hmm.
King Rock was talking a lot of shit at the beginning of the season. Before we even drafted. So I'll go with him for rival, and then competition would, I think, either primarily be the Scoop Van or DDD.
Okay. Moving on. Next, who, in your opinion, was the biggest steal of the auction? I think I already know your answer, but go ahead.
I think it was Poppy.
Yeah, pretty clear cut. Yeah, he went for way, way less than he should have. But
Yeah.
any o-
And he went even for more than he needed to go because I could have underspent what I did there.
yeah, you being bad at math made me feel good that day.
I just didn't think about how players needed to spend more minimum on each player.
Mhm.
So I just went for what I saw the lowest was.
For context, for those who don't know, Tago only had to spend 21.5 to guarantee getting Papi, but he spent 27.5 because he didn't realize that he could have just spent 21.5 and no one could outbid him.
Yeah. I just didn't process that part of it.
DTT, where the math dies. Uh, of the players who play in lower divisions, do you think there was someone you think is going to surprise everyone?
What do you mean by that?
Like there's a lot of players, especially like because a lot of teams spent their budgets. There's a lot of players who actually went for quite low, sub 15. Who do you think among those players is going to surprise someone?
I don't remember exactly what everyone went for, but someone who went for sub 15. Probably Kylie again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she would be pretty surprising. I'm pretty sure she went for under 15.
Yeah, I think she went for 10. Oh yeah, Zerchi was spent. Oh my god, yeah.
Zerchi is another one who I shout out. That's a previous teammate of mine.
Mm-hmm. He moved up in life. He moved up in life now.
Like Hockey Craft and Film on my team, but I also don't think that they should have been sub 15. So I think that they were both very good steals at that value.
I think for me the pick would be Nono. I think Nono was a fantastic steal. He's already 2-0, so I think he was a really good pickup for us. We got him for like min value if I remember correctly.
I did not know that.
Yep, and he's been really helpful with building too. So now I'm gonna move on to your drafts. Okay, so I've got your NatTex and USM drafts in front of me. Can you just run me through what was the thought process during your NatTex and USM drafts? Start with NatTex.
The thought process with NatDex was, oh dang, Lando T is super cheap, and then everyone had picked up Megas, and it was like, oh okay, so now we also get Scizor Mega without any competition. And it was kind of building around that. So you do the classic Lando T, Rotom Wash, Pivot Core, Crobat for speed control and more pivoting, Chandelure because we anticipated that we were going to go for the Mega Scizor, and just generally kind of paired well. Diancie looking for rocks, and something to help us deal with dragons. The added fire resist was really beneficial because that's one of Scizor's weaknesses. And then Roselia, Guzzlord. Cryogonal has been a shameful mon, man. I hate Cryogonal. We drafted it because it was like, what do we fill in? Maybe this thing can come to a matchup. It came last week or 2 weeks ago. It's bad. I hate that one. And then Mega Scizor.
Yeah, Lambo's gonna find you now. Lambo's probably tracked you to Canada now for talking ill of Cryogonal. Moving on to your USM draft, really, you guys kind of went top heavy with your USM draft. Can you explain to us why you went with that strategy?
There was just a lot of mons that we thought really paired together well. Like, I think Torn T, Gallade, Heatran, and Hydreigon, you just have, like, your barrel of offensive pressure, plus Torn is just getting them all in. Hydreigon's U-turning on fairies into Heatran and a lot of offense. This was a team where it was like catered more to some of our more offensive players, and so we just thought, let's make everything able to dish out damage and have some bulk to stand up to things as well.
Also, go on.
Yeah.
No, go on.
I also thought Glaceon got freeze dry,
Oh no,
So
no, not in Gen 7.
yeah, that was the sad part.
Yeah, but for 1 point, it's a good pickup. 130 special attack for 1.1. Maybe it can't hit borders, but it looks pretty. Um, the big decision on your USM team was to not make probably the best or top or among the top two months. Tonti is probably a top two Z user in USM.
Hmm.
Not making that your Z captain and going with Hydreigon Primarina. And if I'm not wrong, you guys have exclusively used Primarina so far as a Z move user. Was that something you guys talked over before the draft, or was that like an after post draft decision to go with Hydreigon and Prim as your Z caps instead?
The restriction of it being 25 points is just what made it tough. Like Torn was an excellent Z user,
Mm-hmm.
and then just based off of what we had, we were thinking, well, are we really going to be able to bring Sigalith with a Z move very often? No. Are you going to put it on Lilligant? I was considering like, oh, Torn Lilligant, but then I think just the flexibility of having two really consistent Z users in both Hydra and Prim
Mm-hmm.
ended up being something that we liked more overall, and we went with that instead.
Honestly,
I think it's
yeah. Sorry, go on.
just one last thing is like, especially with Hydreigon not
Mhm.
having plot in this gen, it
Mhm.
really likes the extra power of Z moves.
That's true. But to be fair, I really thought when you guys had finished your draft that you were considering Heatran as a Z cap because of potential Bloom Dooms and giving Heatran an extra oomph, uh, even as a bulky steel. So I thought that was another option for you guys, but Hydreigon makes sense, especially with Corkscrew Crash being a thing for a lot of bulky fairies.
Hmm. Or even like Z Belch, you could do the Poisonium Z
Yeah,
on Belch and nuke things that way too.
yeah, acid downpour there is fantastic. Now, I'm moved on now to your Auras and low tier drafts. Start with the Auras draft. You guys had Kyurem Black, Infernape, Greninja, Donphan, Crobat, Lantern, Clefairy, Vileplume, and then you got Skarmory last. What was your strategy in Auras?
Um, that was something where we saw that people had just been taking their steals very early on, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of the good ones are very valuable picks.
Mm-hmm.
And once we saw that, it was realized like, oh, we can wait on Skarmory, and so we were able to prioritize things that we thought were really high value, like the Donphan at 9 for both spin and rocks, just because of how sticky hazards are this gen, and the Crobat as well for Brave Bird. Then on the tail end of things, we were just kind of like, okay, let's shore up our matchup a little bit versus opposing dragons with Clefairy.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, we wanted to start the draft with like the big breaker core of the Kyurem and Infernape, and then Gren, which at 12 is an absolute steal, honestly.
Yeah, it was undertiered for sure. Yeah, it was undertiered for sure. With spikes and T-spikes, especially in addition to its speed tier and offensive presence, definitely undertiered.
Yeah, super good. Even Infernape at 14, like it was lower than Victini at 15, and Victini in this gen doesn't have boots to help it with its defensive utility. It's clicking V create, and then dark types are able to outspeed it and trap it with pursuit. But Infernape in this, on the other hand, it was like, wow, this is such a demon pick. Where it's tiered, it helps us even with having another rocker, which like is really beneficial here too. So just a ton of pressure where we were thinking, let's make Hazard sticky, let's U-turn and then use Donphan to try to keep them off of our side and keep pressure on our opponent that way.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have gotten a lot of use out of Vileplume, because one of the concerns I had when you guys drafted your team was Donphan's Calm, because I just thought, okay, they've gone a little bit too heavy on the Fizz-Def side. Would they struggle with Spidef side? But Vileplume has really come through.
It has. Vileplume, I think, was a really solid pickup, and I'm very glad that we went Vileplume instead of Tangela, which was one other thing that we were thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Now moving on to your Charizard format team. What was the reasoning behind this team?
So, when we first started thinking about drafting, we thought, oh man, Electivire is so good. Spoiler alert, Electivire is not that good, and I will say that till the day I die. Electivire has been like a super disappointment in my eyes. I think that just other teams drafting well have ended up giving themselves a really great matchup into it. Just stuff like Claydol that we faced last week, it was really difficult for Electivire to handle that. It's fast for the format, but still slower than it feels like it needs to be. Like this week, we're coming up against a Charizard, and it's like, oh, hey, Electivire is slower than that. Great. Lycanroc, I think, is a really good mon in the format, just given how fast it is, and like with how poor some of the ground types are, the offensive pressure that it brings is pretty great.
Absolutely.
We were thinking Altaria because when we were looking at the team so far with the first two picks, it was just incredibly ground weak, and a lot of the bulky flyings are actually banned from the format, and so there's no real way to consistently switch in and handle opposing grounds. Granted, not all of them are all that great, but when you have two mons that are checked by ground types, you kind of want to be able to answer them, and that was our thought for Altaria. And then Stunfisk, Galar, and Mr. Mime were just two mons that I thought were like super high value. I think Stunfisk has a really excellent typing and really good bulk. And then just with its stab combination, with Edge Quake combination plus other moves and rocks, it brought a lot to the table. And Mr. Mime, I just thought that Psychic plus Fairy was super, super difficult to switch into.
Absolutely. But I see a Vileplume here too. So who is the Vileplume stan on the team?
No one. It was just something that we thought was good value at 15. Like growth sets are something that's really beneficial for it. You got Rocky Helmet, you run Strength Sap, you just attack over and over again, basically. And it just has longevity. It has utility, being able to put things to sleep. Has a lot of bulk that's missing in the format otherwise. So I think that Vileplume actually is super consistent. One thing that I've found is actually pretty disappointing just is the Altaria. I've realized that it just doesn't exert enough pressure, and so any team that's able to kind of answer it going for Toxics is in rough shape. It's just in rough shape checking things defensively because of that. But Poliwrath, on the other hand, was a demon at 9, and I think that was a super good pickup for the team.
Absolutely. I don't want to ask about Eradicate. What? Okay, I'm going to ask about Eradicate. What was Eradicate here for?
Okay. Eradicate, you're talking about a mon with a 97 speed tier, stab, facade with guts. Oh my gosh, just wait till it comes to a game and it blows everything out of the water.
It's not come to 66% of the season thus far, Tago. Do you think it's going to make it?
Yes, I think it will be coming to games. I think it's going to be a playoff demon once we make it there. Just keep your eye out for Eradicate.
Okay, so now rounding off. What smack talk do you have for the other coaches?
What smack talk do I have for the other coaches? You guys are going to get scrapped. Bop. Whoosh. Pow. Like that.
Oh my god. So, closing thoughts, Tago. What do you think? How do you think the season's gone so far? What do you think of the other teams? And where do you think the season's going to end up for you guys?
I was actually thinking about that. Rick and I were talking about it yesterday. So if we're looking at the standings page, we are currently in third with 5 points off of 2 draws. First of all, I want to say that it's crazy that a win is 3 points and a draw is only 1 point. Like the fact that 1 game difference is the difference between Scoopvan being 2 points ahead of us and us being tied is like, holy cow. Or sorry, 1 point ahead of us is big. So that is something that annoys me, and I'd like to bring that to attention.
Hopefully that's something we can correct.
Yeah, in future seasons. When I was looking at TMNS, they come up against the 2 teams in the last week that are in the highest contention with us for a spot. And so I think if we win one of our next 2 weeks or tie both of our next 2 weeks, then we are always guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. And if we do beat the Skook Van, I think that we are maybe locked for first. No, but we need to tie the next week after that.
So it's been great talking to you, Tago. Thank you for coming on. That's gonna be it from us, guys. Tago, you want to say bye to the guys that know you?
Bye to the guys that know me, not to the ones that don't. Sorry, not my fault.
I love that he had to say sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
There you go. That's your dose of Canada for the day, guys. That's gonna be it from us. I'll catch you guys on the next one.